Welcome back to another episode of Stretching Boundaries with Elasticity. I'm your host today, Aaron Perlett, and I am joined by one of our leaders in the agency today, Jason Michael, is our Senior Vice President of Public Relations and really leads the public relations practice for Elasticity. Jason and I come from a similar place. Before we were at Elasticity, at one time or another, we were at Fleischman Hillard. We've both been doing public relations a long time. And Jason, I think there's no question that it's PR today has really evolved to the point where it's no longer sending a remarkably well-written facsimile and making a 30-minute phone call to a reporter who is eagerly awaiting your call, correct?
Yeah, I mean, it's weird how much it's changed that you and I have still looked the exact same. We still look young and amazing. Uh, it used to be, I don't know, it didn't used to just be easy, right? But you knew what you had to do. You knew what the game was, you knew what the table stakes were, and it was just a matter of executing. And, you know, how a lot of people think now it was about building those relationships, and that's still a critical element. But man, it's changed. The lines are so blurred, and to the point where, what is earned and what is paid and where and what is the what's authentic, right? What does it even mean anymore? Back in the days at Fleischman, 15 years ago, you'd get that headline in the New York Times, and that meant something. You knew everyone was going to see it, and that was the beacon, the North Star you were all going for. And now it's, the news cycle but it's changed since we started talking, and so now it's like the whole thing has changed, and it's that being in the New York Times means as much now as a well-placed X or a well-placed blue sky post in terms of getting eyeballs. So that the whole thing has changed, and as such, the strategy and how you have to approach it's changed.
If there's one thing though that has stayed the same, at least in my mind, and I hear you talk about this when you were talking to either a prospective or a current client about really the bread and butter of our practice, and that is what you articulate is kind of the always on mentality.
It's so unhealthy. Like it's great for clients, but it's terrible for my family and my children. You can't be offline. Like we're getting executive orders happening at 2 o'clock in the morning. You're having airlines flip over on their back in the middle of the night, and you have to be glued into everything at all times. Again, if you're selling skateboards or you're selling hats, yeah, I mean that's more of a 9 to 5 type of approach, and you can kind of take that a little bit more of the traditional sense. But if you're working with clients who are very active, or they're political, or they're focused on making a difference and change. You have to be plugged in at all times. And sometimes that means being on platforms that you don't want to be on, or you may not necessarily believe with the politics. You have to know what's happening, because it isn't just here's our announcement, here's what we want it to happen, and here's the coverage we want. It's this news happened. How do we hijack it? How is this impacting our customers, our stakeholders, our brand? And what's the messaging around that? And what is our stance on it? So you have to be plugged in. You have to know what your response is going to be before it even happens. And again, it all comes back to authenticity. It's like you have to know before you react, what that's going to look like, and what the sentiment is going to be, and then even what that response might be from your clientele before you put it out there. It's exhaustive. It's 24/7. But it's the state of the game right now. It's you cannot take your eye off the ball. If you do, it's not even just because your competitors will beat you to it, right? It's you're going to miss an opportunity to get your point of view out there, to build that brand thought leadership, that personal thought leadership, and just kind of let the industry and your customers know what you stand for. And while sometimes it may be exhaustive, those opportunities don't come around very often. So when they do, you have to react, and you have to react quickly.
And some of it to me at least seemed, and I hear you kind of as you instill this in the team that you've built at Elasticity, it's about almost an aggression, like that continuum of just that engine never can stop, that you've always got to be pushing, 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 seeking those opportunities, touching base with reporters, making sure that our clients also know what's going on. But I've always been impressed at kind of the engine, how it seems to never stop, and you seem to instill that within everyone on your team.
Yeah, and it doesn't go with I think I love Man Men. I think it ruined a lot of people's perception about what this job is. And it isn't just, a bunch of guys sitting around in suits and coming up with great ideas. That's still an element to what we do. But man, your foot is on the gas at all times. And it's not just, cover my client, cover my client, cover my client. It's maybe that one through line from when we started in our career and long before that to now. The relationships are still there, but it's not just a, hey, I know this guy. He's going to write whatever we want. It's we've built this trust with this reporter or this influencer or this analyst or whomever, to where because we're always in front of them, right? Because we are aggressive, and it's not just cover my client, write this. It's, hey, here's something you might find helpful. It's being that resource, that guide, that touch points for them at all times. So it's not just, hey, we have this announcement this quarter. We'll come back to you in May. It's, hey man, I saw what you wrote. Great job. If you need a little bit more color, look right here. So you're bouncing around. You're always touching bases with these reporters. And I mean, we were both reporters, man. We were both in this game for a long time, and we know how critical having those resources are. So making sure that you're being aggressive, because just like it's a 24/7 job for us to make sure that our clients are in front of the stakeholders at all times. It's the same way for media, man. They're chasing so many fires and chasing their tails, and the industry is so cutthroat, and it's all about clicks and are their jobs safe? So they're looking for ways to turn around news really quickly. They're looking for reliable sources, and if you can stay in front of them, if you can be aggressive, then they don't have to chase that down. They know where to go, and by you staying in front and you staying top of mind for them, you're doing them a favor, and you're definitely doing your clients a favor.
You mentioned earlier about the blurred lines, and one of the aspects that you've taken over for the elasticity practice over the last year has been social media, but within that has been the influencer piece, which, that's where you get those blurred lines of paid versus earned or what have you. Talk a little bit about how the influencer piece has become an important tool in the toolbox for you and your team.
Who better to talk influencers than a couple of 40-plus-year-old white men, man? Is My entire outfit is predicated on influencers. I was served from this watch to my pants to all based on influencers on Instagram and TikTok. And you like to think that you're not a sheep, and you like to think that you have your own style and stuff, but it's like you're influenced by people that you during your daily scroll. And like I said at the beginning, used to think it was the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal that was going to shape perception and opinion and really drive the conversation. And it's really people like me and you, who have built up that following online. And so making sure that you're making influencer relations, and building these brand ambassadors as part of your communication strategy. God, man, it's so much more critical than it used to be. Before it was, the reporters were the influencers, right? It's like, remember we were working on Living Social back at Fleischman, and it's like, all right, we'd get David Green from GQ, we'd get him out to some of these little activations, and he would help kind of really help kind of drive that campaign, and those would be the wins. And now it's like you're getting the mother of three with 750,000 followers, who's literally 16 blocks away to go to an event or talk about your brand. And it's having more of an impact than you can ever imagine. It's like, because they've built, again, authenticity, they've built that following, they've built that trust. And if you look at media trust right now, for good or for bad, because of the political environment, it continues to plummet. And so now when you're finally finding these influencers and you're finding these brand ambassadors that have a like-minded mission with your brand or your company, and their values are the same and their followers' values are the same, it really, man, it can make such a big impact. And then you bring into the affiliate model, and you start building that commission into what they're pushing out there. It could be the crux of your entire communications campaign, especially on the consumer side, right? There's obviously some brand activism, and if you are trying to get some more political information out there, or if you are trying to get some trying to raise awareness. But when it comes to kind of consumer facing products, and things that we always talk about, how are you talking about a brand that's going to impact my mom in Missouri? And it's like these influencers are on social channels and within their own respective blogs. They're doing that. They're doing it in a way that even people like me, as you can tell by this outfit, like, we don't even know we're doing it. We're just scrolling through it. We're seeing something that clicks with us. the algorithms feeding it right into me. And before you know it, you've built another brand ambassador in me, and so on and so forth. It's just, that influencer campaign can be like a wildfire.
Yeah, and I think that that even in a B2B environment, you might be talking about, industrial manufacturing or something like that. There are still influencers in those spaces because even, when you're trying to reach a business to business environment, you're still talking at the end of the day to a consumer of information.
For
And
sure.
that consumer of information is using all sorts of tools to inform them
And it's not even
about how they do their
yeah.
job.
You're right, and it's like most people when they think of influencers, they think of how am I what am I getting served in when I'm scrolling through Instagram Reels before I go to sleep, or what TikTok's giving me the 5 minutes in between calls. Man, LinkedIn has turned into the biggest influencer platform there is, and like you said, it just in the B2B space, and these individuals they also are paying for a seat at the Forbes Business Council, and they're contributing to these business publications, and then they're also sharing their thoughts across LinkedIn. I mean, even in our space. Percy on the PR side of things. I mean, he's out there. He's talking about how the industry has changed and where things are going, and he's getting post engagements upwards of five six figures. And so you're having these B2B conversations happening on LinkedIn with influencers, much in the same way you used to see it on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. So the influencers stretched across more than what we might normally think on the consumer facing side. And it's a lot of our job now, though, is really educating some of those non-traditional those clients about those non-traditional spaces. You have folks who are in the AI space or even the energy, oil and gas, and it's like they have that same approach. We should be going after the trades. We want to be on Capitol Hill. We want to be meeting with lobbyists. All very important, but it's like, man, you have to start educating them and letting them know where that void is on the influencer front and how they can be making a big difference by engaging in that side of the thing.
Yeah, and while your outfit might be by influencers, mine is by Good Times and Archie Bunker. So this is straight from the Archie Bunker catalog, what I wear. You bring up a really good point though about kind of clients and their understanding or lack thereof of how we do what we do. What is the biggest misnomer or one of the biggest misnomers that you kind of come across? Because you're oftentimes pitching new business in front of prospective clients or clients, and they're saying, well, you can just do this and it's so easy. And I know that a lot of times you've chatted with me and said, yeah, they think we can do this, but in reality, we're doing this instead.
Yeah. So I think that they I'll go back to the Mad Men analogies. And I think maybe our space has done a bad job of educating kind of what we do and how the industry has shifted a little bit. A lot of people think PR equals press release. We put a press release out, we're going to put it over the wire, and then let the money flow in. And it all goes back to that aggression. And a company will see a competitor on the front page of the New York Times or quoted in CNN or they're on Squawk Box, and they wonder how they got on there. And they think, well, why are they going after them? That conversation may have started 18 months ago. And it's like they talked to that producer, they gave a bit of insight, they laid the seeds. And when that story came up, they had a chance to jump on it. I'll use DeepSeek for an example recently. And it's like DeepSeek news hit, and everybody came out of the woodwork, and they were speaking about how China's kind of overtaken America in the AI game, and everyone and their brother wanted to be quoted and share their point of view, and you had to move fast and see some of those individuals who were quoted, who were on Squawk, who were on Fox News. The threads were pulled months ago, and those introductions were made months ago. And if you see that news and you see that come across the wire, and then you see that those earnings go up, if you want to respond, then it's way too late. So again, like people think that all you have to do is know those reporters and know those producers, and you'll be able to jump in. They've already made their phone calls, they've already reached out, and they've already got their guests booked. And that's why it's so important to play that long game. You can sprint, and it's important to be nimble, and it's important to have a partner that can move quickly. We work with a lot of startups, and sometimes they are just announcement driven, or they just want to get something set up and they want to get the ball rolling. But it's also why those long-term engagements are so important because it's all about laying those seeds and laying those breadcrumbs so that when the opportunity comes, you're top of mind. And a lot of clients don't understand that. They think it's just a matter of picking up the phone call and calling the producer of Cheddar and saying they want to speak, when really it's about those relationships that happened a long time ago.
Yeah, I remember we were working with a very large national water utility, water and wastewater utility, and ultimately we were able to land them a feature by the Associated Press, but that took 18 to your exactly 18 months of work and nurturing and relationship building and dropping breadcrumbs and information peddling until it actually came to fruition. But it literally took a year and a half to
Oh, and
bring it.
how many times has a client come and gone, and then a reporter will come back to us and it's from CNN or Today Show and say, hey, we're doing a segment on this. Are you still representing this client? And we're like, no, but happy to, happy to make that intro. And it's like, and again, that's still so much of this is still kind of timing, and there is still
Yeah.
some luck involved. But a lot of times you make your own luck, and that luck starts with having kind of a strategic long-term approach. And yeah, it's a long game sometimes, and that's where again, it all goes together. The influencers can move quickly, the affiliate programs can move quickly, social media you can move very, very quickly, but the PR side of things, you can have those announcements that really do make that immediate blip. But sometimes it's those pieces that kind of those conversations began long ago that can still come in and make a big impact.
Okay, I'll get you out of here on this to quote Tony Kornheiser, my friend. Um, what is kind of the latest? It feels like in the PR space and in marketing communications together, every 6 months to a year, we're dealing with or having to pivot because of something new, some new tweak that has been thrown at us. What is kind of the most recent pivot that you have found you and your team have had to make because of the environment, the industry, technology, or what have you, that obviously a lot of this is still a process. We're trying to wrap our arms around it and be nimble as these things happen. But what's the latest thing you've been trying to wrestle with?
Yeah, I mean, I think most people will say AI and the introduction of, ChatGPT, or even, as we're recording this, Grok 3 came out this morning. So yeah, I think a lot of people will still point to having a basic understanding, and not even just on our end, but educating the clients. And we had a new business call this morning where this woman had never even used ChatGPT, and she's like, well, how should I use it? And so there's that education process. But right now, I would say it is, we've been doing this so long where 8 months ago, I mean, less than that, right? 4 years ago is everyone, we spent so much time working with clients and brands on developing their sustainability message and where they stand on DEI, and how critical it was to make sure that voice is out there. And then
One administration later, it's
all that changes. I mean, and not even just shifts, right? Like seismic changes. And it's something where you can't predict that. And like the same way you can't predict the role that AI is going to be having in our current industry. But you have so many clients where their entire model was built on DEI and focus on immigration and sustainability. And now it's not even just that, hey, let's not make it a core pillar, but we have to strip that from our websites. We can't talk about that because we're going to be alienating, between 40 to 50 to 60% of our potential clientele. So, right now that's really where we're navigating is, trying to avoid any political blowback and making sure that, that clients aren't, sacrificing their core values. But at the same time, they're being smart and from a business perspective. And, they have a board to report to, they have shareholders they have to report to, and it ultimately does still come down to that bottom line. So how do you navigate that? And how do you not jeopardize the future of your company? But at the same time, how do you not bastardize everything that kind of got you to where you are right now? And it sucks, right? That's not fun. That's not, hey, we got you on USA Today. Let's do a fun, quirky little segment on the third hour of Today's show. That is like, all right, what's that fine line and that balance? And they're difficult conversations to have. And that's why, it's sometimes it is really important, those long-term relationships of, let's get that crisis comms plan in place and let's kind of figure this out together. We've been partners for a long time. We know what you stand for. We know what ultimately you want to say, but let's figure out a way to say it in a strategic way that's not going to alienate your customers, but at the same time, it's not going to sacrifice who you are.
Jason Michael, Senior Vice President of Elasticity, Public Relations. I'm sure you need to go put on a pair of pleated pants and send a richly written facsimile to a Wall Street Journal reporter who is sitting by and waiting for it as we speak. So thank you so much for participating and joining us on Stretching Boundaries today.
Anytime, boss.